Well, it does appear that Simone Biles may not compete again in the Tokyo Olympics. She's being evaluated to determine if she can take part in the balance beam and floor exercises. And while that discussion continues, so does the conversation about mental health. We wanted to bring in Steve and Samantha Nimmo to talk about that. The Nimmo Foundation and the Nimmo family founded the Z-Cares Foundation, which is focused on supporting the mental health of youth. Steve and Sam, thanks for joining us. It's always great to talk to you guys.
Thank you, Claudine. Good morning.
Good morning. So, Sam, I'd like to start with you because Simone Biles is in this elite category as an athlete. You're an NCAA athlete at Whittier. What did you think when Simone Biles made this announcement? I mean, it certainly had a lot of people talking about a reevaluation of what we think of toughness when it comes to athletes, what's acceptable, and this idea that it is okay to not be okay, even if you're this amazing athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely, she has so much courage to do that, especially as just a world-renowned athlete and given her spot at the Olympics, being the GOAT, #1, everyone's watching her. I couldn't even imagine the pressure that she's under. For me, just being a college athlete, you know, I've had my fair share of championship games, and that's even stressful. And as athletes, I feel a lot of times our mind and body needs to be connected, but sometimes that's not the case. And I think especially for her, it's so amazing that she was able to step up and say, you know what, right now, my mind and my body is not working as one right now. That's dangerous for me. That's not okay for me. I'm going to step up and say it's okay not to be okay, and I'm going to take myself out of that. That's absolutely amazing, and I feel like it's a great example for so many athletes out there.
It is, because this idea that she's not tough, I mean, can you imagine someone who is tougher than someone like Simone Biles and more dedicated? Steve, you know, she's taking care of herself, and she has really inspired so many of us with her athletic ability. But I think, you know, outside of the athlete discussion, normal folks, us non-athletes, non-elite athletes too, there is this idea that, wow, if she can do it, if she can acknowledge the importance of mental health, then the rest of us may be able to do that too. And that is so important, especially when talking young people who look up to these athletes and who say, wow, they're amazing. It also can be, wow, they're amazing for being able to say this as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I find what she did even more inspiring than had she won the whole thing. The fact she was able to step away from such a large stage and in that same motion become the largest cheerleader of her teammates just shows the character that she has, and the fact that she's willing to put her self-care ahead of all of that. You know, we have a saying that we like to say that self-care is not selfish care. Mm-hmm. And it is really important, and we couldn't agree more. We hope that she is inspiring young athletes to be mindful of their mental health and know when it's okay to step away as needed.
And it's not just Simone Biles, we should say, too. Naomi Osaka also made headlines when she decided not to talk to the press. She said, hey, look, this is not good for my mental health. How important is the message there, too, that you can also decide that it's not just about not competing in the Olympics or not going to a match or not saying, but saying in this moment, so whatever it is, if I'm in high school and I'm saying this, doing this is not okay for me, doing that is not okay with me, how important is that in this space as well?
For me, it's fantastic, and I think both Simone and Naomi, you know, again, should be applauded for their courage to do what they've done. And again, hopefully those young athletes can feel comfortable going to their coach or going to their parents or going to teammates, someone to talk about, hey, I'm not feeling on right now, and I'd like to talk about it.
There is this other side of it, right? You know, and when we can do this very positive side, which we see and we acknowledge, and we are acknowledging it, you know, that whether it's Naomi saying this is what I needed to do, or Simone Biles saying, you know, this is so important. You know, Simone Biles said something, you know, that really struck to me. She said, the outpouring of love and support I've received has made me realize that I'm more than my accomplishments and gymnastics, which I never truly believed before. That's all great. What is hard to see are the criticisms that both those athletes have received, calling them weak, or saying they let down their country or let down the sport, or they're not. That part of it does exist. Maybe it doesn't exist as a large measure. Maybe they are able to ignore that and understand that they're doing the right thing for themselves. But that part of it does make this mental health conversation difficult, I would think. You know, Sam, weigh in on that when you see how much negativity they've also had to overcome.
Yeah, it definitely is heartbreaking for me to see that because I think this is something that should be normalized. This really shouldn't be, a huge deal for so many people. I feel like we should applaud them for putting themselves first and taking into consideration their mental health. And I think it's a great example for all of us to follow and to hopefully start normalizing that it's okay to put yourself first. Like he said, self-care is not selfish. And I think that's definitely a motto that we need to start living by.
Steve, what would you say? Because some of it I feel like, and I don't know if you agree, but some of it is an age thing. I find young people very inspiring. They are okay with saying this is not okay and taking that stand. These are young athletes who have grown up in the sport saying, you know what, I'm not going to do this. This is something that older athletes and older people are saying this was never a conversation I could have. How can parents, especially parents of young competitive athletes, and any parent who has a child struggling with mental health, be a part of this conversation that leads them to be able to, it's anything, right, when young people struggle. How can the older generations and parents be a part of this process in a positive way, in your mind?
I think it's education. I think we, as an older generation, I think we can educate ourselves that mental health and physical health should be treated as a very similar thing, that we can kind of eradicate this stigma of mental health, and that if someone's struggling, we should be okay with it. So if we educate ourselves to what mental health truly is, I think we can make that step in the right direction. And with that is open up conversations in your home. Be okay to ask your kids, how are you doing today? And try to get beyond the answer of I'm doing fine, right? To try to get into a deeper level of conversation of really where are they from a mental health perspective?
Yeah, take this and make sure it leads to more conversations. And I think that is so important. Thank you for all the work that you do. I also would encourage people to go to the Z Cares Foundation and look for tips, because sometimes it's difficult to start that conversation if you've never had it. So, Steve and Samantha Nimmo, it is always great to talk to you. Always great to have your perspective and everything that your family has done to really encourage this conversation about mental health. We appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you,
Claudine.
All right.